Welcome to the Imminent Learner. This is my vision for the future of learning. I created this as a professional development tool for our librarians in our school, not necessarily to have them become teacher librarians, but for them to understand the direction of our libraries and the roles of those involved with our libraries as we move towards a 21st century learning commons. So my district principal had asked me to come up with something to help them understand what the vision of libraries is, and I really didn't find any one particular item that would help them, so I pulled this together, and this is what I would plan on spending, say, a half a day working through and discussing with them, and hopefully having them come to see a vision of their own through collaboration of what our libraries may be evolving to. So I start with focusing basically on three different aspects. I've got the learning community, the learning culture, and the learning environment. These were the key components. Under the learning community, I really just wanted to start with this one with Will Richardson, where he's talking about the learning environment that he would want for his own kids, and he talks about how they're networking to learn things that they're interested in outside of the school walls, and so they're contacting experts, via YouTube or whatnot in order to learn what it is that they want to learn. So his example is his daughter who wants to learn how to play a certain piano piece that her instructor hadn't taught her, nor did her instructor think she was ready for it, but she was playing it and she was playing it beautifully. So we need to look at our learning community and understand that there are experts that could be teachers that are beyond our walls, and we need to know how to pull that community together. Starting with professional needs, this to me mirrors the needs of our students. Professional development is not effective in the traditional models, just like schooling is not effective under the traditional model for our students. And so when we look at PD providers like Edmonton Regional Learning Consortium or PD 360, they're looking at providing alternative modes of professional development that can allow you to create a more personalized learning experience, so the do-it-yourself PD. They allow you to do large group, small group, one-on-one. You can do it anytime, anywhere. Uh, so we really have a reshaping of the PD. It's happening on site, in context, and it just makes it more meaningful and powerful. Uh, Also, by having a teacher librarian or an instructional coach, we have some kind of support to promote that implementation for a longer term, and hopefully to create the staying power that we need in order to make those types of changes to our pedagogical approaches and practices. So of course, Will Richardson does a great job talking about the benefits of the professional learning works or learning networks, and this applies not only to teachers but to students, both inside and outside of the school environment. And then we talk about what I would talk about with the librarians is the roles, and I think this is really important because we have to understand that as there is a shift in our function of our library space and the programming that we're offering out of there, there's also a shift in the roles of the people that are in there. And I know in our particular case, our librarian tends to be very secluded and on her own with much of what she does in there. And the shift will be to be part of that collaborative culture. And so, setting up a committee to help guide the direction of the library, creating a vision statement that is in line with the targets of the school, creating a mission statement to give us an action plan, having the principal support the entire process so that there's buy-in from the staff. Having your librarian or your teacher librarian or media specialist there in order to implement the programming that's required and to implement the lessons and the teaching that's required to promote literacies and reading, and to guide what the librarians are doing in there, the technologists or the librarian technicians, as they evolve in their own understanding of their role. Creating library media programs, through collaboration with staff members that complement what's happening in the classroom, building collections that complement what's happening in the classroom, students understanding that their role is not as a passive receiver of information, but that they are active and they participate and they produce, um, um, and give back to the learning community. And then developing reading programs that just really permeate throughout the entire uh, learning environment and promote a passion for reading and get kids reading more so that they can realize the benefits of better achievement and whatnot, which all the research shows. And then I would touch on the manifesto from Joyce Valenza, because I think that just opens up a huge amount of discussion regarding the different roles and duties for teacher librarians. Um, and then finally, I give a link to a wiki we created in a previous course on marketing and advocacy, because I think that becomes the role of everybody involved in the library commons and the teacher librarianship and the programs that they offer through these two roles. Because if we're not advocating, then people are not understanding the impact that it has. And then we go into student support. Student support is beyond just supporting them with the skills. I think what we need to look at too are some of those things that we don't necessarily um, see right away. So for instance, Nicholas Carr presents in his book, The Shallows, how the technology may be interfering with our ability to read for depth, the structure of our brain, um, just our online literacies are changing, the depth that we are able to get from any kind of reading. So when we look at Nicholas Carr, he's presenting something that we need to consider when we look at teaching students. Another one that really resonated with me was Nora Young when she talks about the virtual self, because to me this definitely connects with psychoanalytic theory. And to me, this is just another layer of how we construct who we are, both in person and online. So I think that having, again, an awareness of this promotes, and again, with our students, we want to develop this metacognition, just so that we are not experiencing it and being subject to it unknowingly. Okay, and then into learning culture. So when I look at the learning culture, again, it's about using all of the pieces and doing a little bit of a shift maybe with how we're doing our assessment to focus on the learning skills rather than just the knowledge outcome. And we want to focus on collaboration and all of those things that are essential for being participants in an information era. David Lankeys talks about the role of the teacher librarian and the learning commons, and I think that this is valuable for librarian technicians to look at, because if they were not aware of what their role would be, this at least gives them some food for thought and realizes what their limitations may be as a library tech and why you would need a teacher librarian in there to promote certain programming and to facilitate certain learning. Teacher librarians also have to have a shift with, or not teacher librarians, library technicians also need to grow and evolve as far as how they're supporting the learners. So they also need to learn the digital tools and be competent with supporting students when they come into the library in those capacities. Okay, so I broke this down into some cognitive strategies that we are already looking at in our district and some ones that I think that will be coming up, or one particular that I think will be coming up. So we focused on critical thinking, and critical thinking is a huge part of inquiry. I was involved with the historical thinking project with Carla Peck, and this is one that we've really been integrating into our programming already. But again, just another way to think objectively and critically about historical material. And then a new one I came across when I was doing some of my research for this was journalistic thinking. And again, because so many things are available to us online through the media, we need to, take a look at how journalists have thought as they prepared things and interpreted things and created. And so our students are in that position too of participatory journalism. So I think that was an interesting one to start investigating. Curriculum is about pulling together all of the things that we have, ICTs in our program of studies, creating a scope and sequence. I've provided a couple of exemplars here again I think are really engaging to provoke discussion. So Han Rosling's mashup basically of a data visualization and his audio and just giving a presentation of data shows the complexity of interpreting media in this era. The thoughts on the state of mobile learning shows that while students, I think what it'll open up discussion for is that because mobile learning is becoming such a huge part of our society, we need to be able to, as a library commons or as a teacher librarian, make our programming accessible through these means as well. If we aren't, then we are not servicing them as well as we need to be. This interactive digital book shows the future, I think, of many of the types of either ebooks that we get um, from our suppliers or the ones that we create ourselves. But either way, I think if we aren't already using them or comfortable with them, eventually we're going to be faced with them. And so teachers need to be understanding these as well as another platform to engage our students. And again, when we look at even the iPad, this particular band has created a couple of Christmas songs just using iPad and their apps. And again, when we start looking at inclusive ed, what the possibilities are for this. We also have a responsibility to teach digital citizenship, and so I've included a little link to some tutorials on doing that. When we talk about literacies, I touch on some information literacies. The Horizon Report gives us some insights as to what's coming. This one talks about citations and why we have a responsibility to do that. This particular one by Henry Jenkins and media literacies is phenomenal and really pulls together how these digital literacies I think lead us to a participatory culture. And then when we look at the reading culture, this particular article that I found from Morellian really opened my eyes to what that reading culture would be and what it would look like in a school setting. And so really I've broken it down and just taken a lot of information, I hope I've cited correctly, from that article on library access, our collections and how we're developing them, the different events that we use to motivate our students, how we work with others to meet the curricular needs, the classroom library connection, again, to collaborate using evidence, that kind of thing, inquiry and reading, and evidence-based instruction. So this one really resonated with me too, because when we look at action research, I just think that that's something that needs to be part of our environment, and it hasn't been up to now. And then the last part that I focus on is the learning environment, and again, this video by Joyce Valenza is just completely moving and powerful about what that environment could look like or needs to look like. And as well, Alan November does a great job. I think he was very ahead of his time in some of the practices he used in his own classroom. And then I get into blended learning because I just think that this is the best of both worlds. So I have some videos to introduce that. We've already done a lot of work on inquiry, but again, it would be something that I would go through with the librarians and just show what that role is in our classrooms. And then the Learning Commons, again, this video was very moving as far as the potential of how we can deliver that support to our students. I'm going to run out of time on this part of my podcast, or screencast, so I'm going to let this finish up and I'll start again on another one.